Hi everyone, my name is Gerson Julius, and today we are going to share about an interesting case study, a project that we worked on starting, I think, 2 years ago. It's still in progress due to the nature of the project. It is a compliance system. BOT, Bank of Tanzania, mandated all banks and financial institutions in the country to be able to send real-time data to BOT. So it is a compliance project, is an interesting project, and we've been able to support 3 banks in the project. The Bank of Tanzania has really been innovative and in pushing up with technology and compliance. So kudos to the government and to the central bank for championing initiatives like this. We've seen major moves in technology, and to give in context, we are a little bit ahead more than most of African countries, more than most of East African countries. By the way, our neighbors, Kenya, they are currently working on an almost similar project, but they call it granular reporting system, something like that. It is not yet even real time, just to give in context of how far are we in our country in a financial space, pushing digital transformation and compliance altogether. So join me as I chat with Philip. Yeah, let's see how it goes. Karibu. So the project that you worked on, the real-time supervisory information system, there's a specific technology ambayo that you used in implementing that system. I think me and you had a chat about robotic process automation. It could have been done without it, probably, if everything was smooth. At what point did we get to use to say, like, okay, we need an RPA here, because either it will be to save people's time and everything. At what point did we get to say we're going to use RPA?
Yes, now, before the RPA, banks would actually collect all their data and they would send it to BOT at the end of the year. There came a time that BOT required that all banks actually send their data in real time. As they happen, BOT needs to have it. Now, the RPA that we made simplified that process because the system would first collect the data from a database schema that the banks would actually formulate. Then from there, the system itself would pull in that data, verify it immediately, and send it to BOT. So let's take an example that a certain bank information has arrived. Once it reaches the database, at most, now this depends on how fast the bank has actually set the verification timer, but depending on how long it took to reach there, it will first check the database if there is any new data, collect that data, verify it, then send it to BOT. So of course the RPA saved time because the banks themselves had to collect all the data, a year's worth of data probably, and they would send it all at once to BOT. Now, you can imagine BOT's side, processing all that data at once was time consuming. Mm-hmm. And even the whole process of collecting all the data from the banks to take it to BOT was time consuming as well, because it would be either a month's worth or even a year's worth versus the RPA that would actually take the data immediately as it arrives and send it directly to BOT.
How important was it to get this done?
I would say the first challenge would be the ensuring the data integrity when actually taking the data. Because if the system is not able to collect the data carefully with its full integrity and update what is supposed to be updated, then, BOT wouldn't be getting accurate data regarding the bank. So that was one of the challenges, to ensure the data integrity, because BOT had created the endpoint to receive the reports. There is an extra feature that was added where whenever BOT received the report, they would return a response. Now, we would capture that response and actually show it to the banks themselves on whatever problem has occurred with the report. So it would actually notify the banks that, okay, this, and this has been rejected because of this, and this. So that made it easier for the banks themselves to know why, if anything goes wrong, what did go wrong, you see. You could say that the other challenge was the amount of data. For large databases, now this is where the database administrator needs to make sure that he queries data in batches, because there are some who can mistakenly collect everything. Now, once everything is collected, the RPA itself may get stuck because of trying to process so many data at once. And once it does that, anything else that tries to enter will have to wait. And during that time, you have to make sure that the data doesn't get lost. So all in all, we could say that the biggest challenge was the ensuring the data integrity between all these processes.
You mentioned about database administrator, the system. I believe those were part of the users, you say, within the system. And maybe without an automation, it would have been a little bit more tedious, more work to them. Overview of how you help them set up from, putting the schema and then the automation and that thing you told me that will come forever to be able to check up the data.
There is something neat that we did with RTSIS. There are over 90 reports. Now, over 90 reports means the bank, if every report is automated, that means they will need to create either 90 Excels or 90 scripts. Now, creating them manually is hard work on itself, right? Because they have to follow a certain schematic that applies to RTSIS. Now, what we did with RTSIS, there is a automation being done there. When the system begins, it creates a sample for all 90 reports. When it creates a sample for all reports, there is an extra file being created where the database administrator can provide the details for what the database connection is, where the schema is, its username and password. So once they actually do that, they will apply to all the reports. So what they just need to do is apply the data itself, the data point. For somebody who can actually, think outside the box, they can simply create their schema according to what RTSIS sampling has performed immediately. So all they have to do is just edit that one file and it applies to all the reports. And once that is done, the database administrator has already saved 90 reports worth of preparing the JSON data into that one file that the RPA has created for him.
How much time would you say that has saved a human administrator from doing, if you quantify it in a day or something?
In a day, somebody could maybe create JSONs for probably 10 reports. That is including maybe testing if the report actually fits well. And if it doesn't, then it will be less because they have to modify it again, do this, do that. Now, if you could say that there is a mistake in all 90 plus reports, that's another time-consuming activity to edit each one. And that is why that single file for automation already cleared anything minor that may happen within the 90 plus reports.
Okay, interesting. What excited you most working in the project?
So it was exciting because there are 3 services in RTSIS. There is a service that pulls the report. There is a service that manages the data to actually show to the portal for the banks to see. And there is a push service. Now, of course, the pull service is the one that pulls the report from the database schema. and saves it. The push service is the one responsible for actually taking the data, formatting it according to what BOT needs, and sending it to them. The portal, of course, is the only one that shows what the data is. The exciting part, of course, came, there is the learning of React.js to manage the portal. Now, the other fun part, of course, was the communication between these three services, ensuring the data integrity that actually passes between all these three, because they're not directly linked, they are completely independent. Each one has its own process, they are not aware of each other. And that is because it allows one system to actually be in another server, portal may be in another server, push may be in another server, completely independent, and they can still communicate with each other. So if a bank only needs like a manual system, then pull can just be omitted from the process and things are still working fine. If they don't need to have any manual upload, then the pull and push service may work together seamlessly. So of course, making the whole system work together was a fun experience, yes, because you get to see the data flow from once it's being pulled until it reaches its data management center, until it reaches the push service, until it reaches BOT, and when BOT returns the response and seeing that response on the portal. Yes, I could say that was the fun part.
Nice. So there are multiple data sets I can imagine. Multiple data sets used within, like with all the data from different banks and everything. I need to understand keeping the data integrity, but dealing with multiple data formats. How was that the case? Was that the case with RTSIS? And if it was the case, how did you deal with it with the team, dealing with multiple data sets?
Yes, now, dealing with multiple data sets, you can imagine having 90 plus reports. That would require 90 plus tables, which would require 90 plus models for data storing. Now, the thing that actually made us dodge a bullet is that it was done in Java. Now, in Java, there is a concept called the Java reflection. Java reflection allows you to actually apply metadata onto your models. So you can create those 90 models, but you can automate all the processes, how data is being mapped, how data goes to BOT, how data is handled through Java reflection. Now, of course, that made it much easier to actually manage all these 90 plus reports at once, because it would require 90 plus endpoints just for receiving data from the pull service. It would also require 90 plus endpoints for sending to BOT. Now, of course, with reflection, we've been able to actually only use one endpoint that handles all the data and one endpoint for sending to BOT. And when it arrives, the response from BOT, the mapping is also being done by Java reflection.
Interesting. Yes. We are in the era of AI. Most of part of systems in our countries are not very much digitally transformed.
Yes.
I need your take on how RPA, robotic process automation, because when you get RPA, robotic process automation, alongside AI, you get an intelligent automation. How could AI and RPA help accelerate organizational and enterprises digital transformation quickly?
The use case for AI in terms of RTSIS, I imagine the best use case would be the data that is being transferred to BOT and the responses that are coming from. At the moment, there is a engineering-based implementation whereby BOT requires a specific format for the reports. The way that they require the date, the way that they require their numbers, the way that they require information. Now, at the moment, there is that basic implementation where the system will show on the portal if BOT may probably reject this report because of an invalid format. Now, of course, that implementation is not exactly reliable because BOT may or may not accept it, you see. Now, AI can actually help with that based on the responses coming from BOT. Because as RTSIS captures the response, becomes part of the available data set that the AI can use to actually show the banks how the data formats are required by BOT normally. Because at the moment, there are documents that BOT have given which specifies the data formats that they need. The only challenge with that is that if they actually change any data and forget to update the document, then that means they will be rejecting the reports. Now, AI can actually help with showing the trends of the data that is being sent to BOT. And it can actually advise on certain data, whether there is a problem with it before it actually gets sent to BOT. This is AI Ladder with IPF Softwares.